Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. For those of you who are regulars at St. Thomas Ice Arena for press conferences, hopefully it's a little warmer than our normal Monday accommodations. I'd like to kick off our Monday morning by introducing our Director of Athletics, Dr. Phil Esten, who is here to make some exciting news for St. Thomas Athletics.
All right.
Thank you, Kelsey. Good morning, everybody. Before I start, I want to acknowledge a few people that have joined us today. Michelle McAteer from the WCHA, thanks for being with us today. We've got a couple of other head coaches here today. I'm not going to rattle them all off, but I appreciate you taking some time to celebrate this moment with us. And of course, the women's hockey staff has joined us. The entire staff has joined us as well. So, and so many others that have joined us today to celebrate this opportunity and this milestone for Bethany. You know, since the day that I met Bethany, I knew that one day she'd be a head coach. I did. You could tell by the way that she held herself, by her curiosity in head coaching, but also the sport of hockey and her commitment to just being excellent in all facets. I didn't know that it'd be at UST at the time, and I'm so thankful that we're here today celebrating the way that we're celebrating. You know, in our first year, she was our acting head coach, and she navigated that transition to Division I with poise and a lot of class and dignity, and it was the first time for all of our sports, but in women's hockey, that we had to travel the way that we traveled and recruit the way that we recruited and operate game management, et cetera, the way that we did. And again, she managed that with the staff really, really well and at a high level. And again, I could tell at that point she was pretty special, and we had somebody special at St. Thomas. And then, of course, over the last couple of months, she's just led fantastically as the interim head coach, taking over in mid-November. But I tell you what, frankly, she's been leading for much longer than that at the University of St. Thomas. You know, in conversations with Bethany over the years, but more specifically in the last several months, I've learned to love the way that she thinks about culture, the way that she thinks about integrating the athletic and academic and campus experience as a holistic experience for our student athletes. It aligns really well with the values that we espouse at St. Thomas, not just departmentally, but institutionally. And she invests time in continuous improvement, and I tell you what, she's as competitive as they come. You know, Coach Brausen has emerged as one of the best coaches in college hockey across the country, and thrilled to ask you to join me in welcoming Bethany Brausen as our new head coach of the women's hockey team.
All right, hello everyone, and thank you for being here today. I know everyone's got busy schedules, and I certainly appreciate all the support of people here today, so thank you. It's both an honor and a privilege to accept the role of head coach for the University of St. Thomas women's hockey program. I'm deeply grateful to President Vischer and Vice President and Director of Athletics, Dr. Phil Esten, for their trust in me and providing me this remarkable opportunity. I'd also like to extend my thanks to our sports administrator, Ben Frazier, who's here this morning as well, for his continued support. I firmly believe that I have the privilege of working within one of the most esteemed athletic departments in the entire country. And while the achievements of our team undoubtedly contribute to that reputation, it's the incredible people who work here that truly make it exceptional. To the players, you're the reason that we wake up every single day excited to come to work. Coaches often enter the profession of being a coach with the hope that they can positively influence and impact the lives of the student athletes that they're privileged to lead. What many players might not realize is that in this process, it's often you guys who make us better as well. The opportunity to coach such exceptional young women is the primary reason why I entered into coaching, the reason I have stayed in coaching, and is certainly the reason I look forward to being a part of this journey for the years to come. So thank you for giving me the gift of doing something that I love so deeply, feeling as though I've never had to work a day in my life. To Marty and Allie, for being here today as well. I once was told that the most important thing that you can have in a coaching staff is people that you can do life with and to be in the trenches with one another. We undoubtedly have this in one another, and I feel extremely grateful for that. And too good to be true really starts today. To my family, Thank you for helping me reach this point. The countless hours of love, unwavering support, and guidance that you guys have provided for me are the reasons that I'm here today. Alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much, and this incredible opportunity is a direct reflection of what we've actually done together. I would not be half the person I am without all of you. Lastly, to my wife, Whitney, there are not words that could sufficiently cover my appreciation of you. I often believe that hockey has brought me the best things in my entire life, but by far the greatest gift it has ever given me was you. So thank you for always being at my side. As we look towards the future, I want to acknowledge a phrase that's both visible throughout our department. You guys have probably all seen it walking in, and that's echoed by the people within St. Thomas. And that is that we have a proud past and a bright future. In advancing towards that bright future, our program will be rooted in gratitude, commitment, and integrity in everything that we do. We'll hold our athletes to the highest standards of excellence, that's both on the ice and in the classroom, while prioritizing that their development as individuals and leaders comes first. Our core mission is to prepare them to thrive as strong, capable young women in their personal and their professional pursuits in life. I am confident that St. Thomas is uniquely positioned within the college hockey landscape, not only to ascend the ranks quickly, but also to become a consistent contender for national tournaments as well. I cannot wait for the days ahead as we pursue our comprehensive excellence together. Thank you again.
We now open it to questions from the media. If you could say your name and your organization, and then we'll get started. Oh, sorry. And I will never steal Phil's pen again.
Not all at once.
Jamie's Italian with the St. Paul Pioneer Press. Bethany, just you mentioned just the gratitude to have this position. Just kind of what have you learned throughout hockey that you think best prepares you to kind of lead this program forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. It'd be easier to say what haven't I learned. I mentioned in my commentary, but I feel like sports are such a special opportunity, a special experience. I think especially as a young girl, as a female, the things that you can learn and take away from it are they're countless. I think the greatest privilege of being able to coach as a profession, like I said, it's a real gift. And so I think throughout the years, it's what hasn't it taught me? You know, it teaches you about teamwork, how to operate in an actual organization with other people, how to be in the trenches with people when life gets tough. So I think it's all those, not only the hockey lessons and the small skill sets and things like that. Of course, the tactical components is a huge part of the game. And we certainly hope and expect that we'll pass that on to players. But it's absolutely on top of that is the culture development, the people, and how you lead them.
Years ago, after the start review, Phil said he knew the first day he met you were going to be a coach. When did you know it?
That's a great question. Yeah, I appreciate that comment, Bill. I love that. I think actually in my playing days, I stumbled on this social media post that went out some years ago. I was an upperclassman. I was playing at Minnesota at the time. And I don't really remember this, but there was a reporter at our practice, and they had tweeted something out about me kind of taking command of the group as a player and really pulling them together, yelling, bringing the group together. And they made some comment about being a coach one day. And I think that was the first time when I saw that post, I was like, yeah, coaching could be actually a profession, something to pursue. And so it's interesting because it wasn't necessarily on my radar early. It wasn't a professional path I thought I would pursue on my own right. But then when the opportunities have presented themselves, it feels like it's an impossible job to get out of. It's really special. And so I think really when I was an underclassman and then moving into my upperclassman leadership roles as a player, that's when it became apparent that that would be something I'd love to pursue.
Bethany, now that you're in the big chair, do you anticipate any changes in style and the way St. Thomas is going to play going forward?
I would hope that we continue to have our foundation of what we've built in the first 3.5 years. I think that we're certainly in a good spot, but as any competitive coach would tell you, we're not there yet. And I'm as competitive as they come, and so I would say that while that foundation is good, it's strong, it's something that we're certainly proud of. I think as we continue on both in this year, and you've seen that kind of in some recent games for us, we're going to continue to push that standard of excellence and continue to raise that bar. And so while we are, like I said, very proud of where we're at, we are certainly not satisfied until we continue on into the future this year and the years ahead, and keep pushing the standard, not only for St. Thomas, but what it means to become a national contending type of program.
What have the past few months been? You've been with the program for a long time, just kind of taking over in that interim role,
Yeah.
having it come to fruition today.
Yeah, it's been a lot of things. It's been a crazy whirlwind. It's been exciting. It's been overwhelming. It's been rewarding. I think that it's come with a lot of challenges, but certainly, you know, as Phil had mentioned, there's a lot of confidence, I think, for not only myself, but for our full staff, just having been there before and having done this in our first year of competition. I think you can look back, and Phil might agree with me, that the first year of the transition to Division I athletics, I mean, the challenges are just, you know, every single day, and there's always new and different ones. And so I think being able to have that opportunity in the first year, and I appreciate Phil with entrusting me with that and entrusting me once again now, but certainly I think that kind of backbone and that foundation that we were able to build in that first year gave us a lot of confidence moving forward.
Will Hall with Carolina.
Yeah.
How would you describe your leadership style both on the ice as well as off?
Yeah, I think a big thing for me is it's interesting, right? Because you're coaching a team sport. So you have, you know, upwards of 25, 26 players on your roster. And so there's certainly an element of managing a bigger group. You have to go in between periods, you gotta give a pregame message. You're often addressing that bigger group. For me, I think my coaching style lends more towards specific individuals or small group opportunities. Because I think with any given group, everyone is so different. And so the more that you can understand each individual athlete and come alongside them and coach them at that individual level, I think you get the most out of every single person when you have that in the back of your mind. So it's that balanced approach, I would say, of knowing that you have to somehow pull this team together, get the organization moving in the right direction, shared vision, shared values, shared culture and experience, while still tending to each individual and how you engage with them to make sure you're getting the most out of them.
Bethany, which coaches that you had influenced you the most?
Yeah, great question. I was actually just talking with Phil about this recently. I think as I look back on my career, there's so many people that had influence. Sometimes it was in one moment, one conversation, and they probably don't even know how much of an impact they had. There's other coaches I worked alongside or played for 4 years, 5 years or more. And so I think that list is, I would hate to be remiss in not mentioning someone on it. But I think as young as when I was growing up, and Winnie Brote was a very prolific and pioneer coach in women's hockey, and she pretty much raised me from a standpoint of a player and going into even my college years. Brad Frost gave me an opportunity at Minnesota. I was texting with him last night. Certainly wouldn't have even been at St. Thomas today without that opportunity in the first place. So I think that coaching is a really great opportunity to learn from everyone around you. So whether that's a coach, whether it's your athletes, there's always the chance to learn from others. And so it's taking some of the good, some of the bad, and then tailoring it to make sure that you're kind of becoming the best individual version of yourself.
Phil, did the UMD series affect the timing of this at all, or just a coincidence?
Well, certainly didn't hurt. It certainly didn't hurt. You know, the WCHA schedule is a gauntlet. You all know that. It's inarguably the most competitive conference in all of women's college hockey. It might be the most competitive conference in all of college sports. And so when you've got an opportunity like we have right now to acknowledge something that should be celebrated, you know, we knew that this was something that was going to happen. Just picking the right time was an important component for us, and so it certainly helped quite a bit.
When did you know that?
I think we've known it for a while, frankly. You know, it's Bethany and I have had several conversations over the last couple of months, and it just continued to reinforce to me that this was the right decision. But as I said in my remarks, you could tell Bethany was going to be a head coach from the moment, I could tell she was going to be a head coach from the moment that I met her. And we're fortunate to have kept her for the last 3 years. And the fact that her first head coaching job is going to be at St. Thomas is really, we're the beneficiary of that equation from that regard.
Do you remember the specifics of that first meeting? When
I don't, not the specifics. I don't remember the specifics of what I had for lunch yesterday.
fair.
But I can tell you, it was an impressive conversation because it made an impression upon me that I still remember that feeling today.
You mentioned that exchange on social media, seeing that becoming the moment you thought about being a coach. Was that like a practice at Ritter, or like do you remember where you kind of gathered the group together?
I believe because we were hosting the national tournament at the time. And I want to say it was probably before the national championship. I remember it was just a really kind of like a profound moment with the team, gathering them together and trying to rally the troops, if you will. So I believe it was during that national tournament. Yeah, one of those hosted at Ritter.
And leadership is always, two-time captain of the Go. Do you think leadership's just always come natural, or is it something you've grown into?
Yeah, that is a really good question. The researcher side of me, I'm working on my dissertation right now, and it's in leadership. And the temptation, I think, is to say, like, well, people are just, like, born as natural leaders. And I think we all have kind of attributes that might lend towards that in our culture, things like that. But I really do think that leadership is learned, it's taught, it's an experience that you gain, and it's a skill that you work on. And so that's why I feel really excited about working with these student athletes who you see bits and pieces of who they are and what they bring to the table, and really leaning into the opportunity to help develop them as leaders. It really, truly is a skill. And so I think that for my own experience, yes, there's been, I talked about my family and people that have helped kind of shape and mold me to become more of a leader maybe over the years. But it's a passion area of mine too, and it's a passion that I hope to pass on to our players.
Bethany, when it comes to building your program in the future, how important will local recruiting be?
Yeah, it's always the question, as you have a school that's in the Twin Cities area, and something that Phil and I have talked a lot about too. We have a hotbed of hockey here in the Twin Cities, and we're really fortunate for that. I mean, most coaches are not convenienced enough to be able to drive 10 minutes up the street in any which direction and hit 5 arenas. So we are spoiled rotten in that way, and so Minnesota will always be a huge part of our recruiting process. One thing that I think I'm also excited about is the opportunity to expand that. At the university level, I think it's really important, and I know President Fisher talks about this, we talk about his athletic department, but just to continue to build our brand elsewhere. I think a lot of people in the state of Minnesota know the prestige of our university, what it has to offer, and the incredible opportunity here. But to continue to build our brand domestically and internationally as well is something that as a coaching staff we've talked a lot about the importance of, not only for our women's hockey program, but for the greater university as well.
At this time, we will pivot. Coach Brausen will stay up to discuss the recent series against Minnesota Duluth and the upcoming series against St. Cloud State. The St. Thomas women's hockey team earned their first ever sweep over a top 5 opponent, beating Minnesota Duluth 3-2 on Thursday and 4-3 in overtime on Friday. Coach will start with a statement about the series, and then we will open it to questions again for you all.
Thanks, Ruth. Ruth, I share in your enthusiasm. We are also very excited about the sweep. Obviously, coming off that Duluth weekend, Ben actually shared with us post-game. I shared it with the program afterwards. We were really excited because we beat a top 5 team in the country as a program. And what Ben had shared is that it kind of went beyond that from a milestone perspective. That's actually how you described it, maybe the highestly ranked win, not only for women's hockey, but within the athletic department in our transition Division I. So that's certainly something for our players to hang their hat on and be really excited about. And I think that we mentioned our conference. Gosh, we play in the toughest conference in the country. We really do. So every single game is a battle. Michelle McAteer is here, our commissioner, and she's like, anyone can beat anyone on a given day, and she's absolutely right. And so I think that when we look at that weekend sweep of Duluth, to me, and we've talked about this with our players, we've seen that coming. We knew that we were knocking on the door. It's a lot harder from an outside perspective when you don't flip the scales of a score and get all these wins in our conference. But what's been really interesting is that we've told our players, we use the analogy of an ice cube. and how you can be in a room and it's heating up from 29 to 30 to 31 degrees and the ice cube never changes, but you're doing the right things, right? Like you're building the habits, you're building the trust, you're building the environment, the culture, and then all of a sudden you get to 32 degrees and the ice cube starts to melt. And everyone's surprised from an outside perspective that the ice cube is melting. They're like, this is coming out of nowhere. For us, it didn't come out of nowhere. We knew that we've been fighting and competing with these teams for years now, and that we just really had to start to turn the corner and really maybe establish one or two of those really big first hallmark wins for us. And now I believe that our players know anything is possible.
We open it for questions from the floor.
Well, I just want to acknowledge these group of kids that you have, that's a legacy win. They don't get
Thank you.
postseason play.
Yeah.
And so that is a legacy win. So it's just, I want to commend you and your program because that's what they're striving to do, is just say we have some legacy wins that future can build upon. So congratulations.
Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate that.
When you talk about that ice cube, like how important is the validation at some point? Obviously, you're putting the work in, but to see it start to move.
Oh, yeah, I mean, for us as a staff, it's one thing, you know, I think, it's a lot easier when you're a staff member to just believe it, know it, show up every day and live into it in some ways. It's a lot harder when you're putting in all the work and you don't see it come to fruition for these athletes. You know what I mean? Like they're getting up early at 6 a.m. so that they can get to a lift before they head to class, before they go straight to the rink and mix in their fueling station options. So they are taxed with just this day-to-day grind. And so for them, that's the reward, right? Like it's one thing as a coach, you get rewarded with some wins and that's fantastic. But for these student athletes, it's like Ruth said, these are legacy wins for them that they know that those hours and hours and hours of effort didn't go wasted, that they're moving in the right direction. And it's not just for them, but it's for the future history of the St. Thomas program as well.
Nothing getting back to leadership. You guys went through a long stretch before you had that success in the group.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep your players optimistic, confident, looking forward when you're not getting those victories that are kind of reinforce what you're doing?
Yeah, I think if anyone knows that exact answer, that is the golden ticket to coaching, honestly, because every season ebbs and flows. It doesn't matter where you coach, but you have your good games, you have your bad games, you got practices that are the same way. I think the biggest thing is really as coaches coming back to that belief and making sure that's authentic for your players. I always say that this age group of young women, they are the most intuitive group of people you will ever be around. And so if you are you're not being authentic, you're not being genuine in your approach, they read right through it and they'll call you on it. So I think the big thing with them is continuing to show up with that belief, with that authenticity, and that genuine approach every single day, that not only do you believe that you can win, but as a coach, you know that you can win. And there's a big difference between believing and hoping and knowing. And I think that that's what you have to establish in your players is an authentic, knowing experience that they can walk into any given game and win.
You said you saw this coming. What's next?
We plan on winning all the rest of the games moving forward. As you guys know, we have St. Cloud number 10 coming up, and then we'll follow that up with Ohio, who's number 2 or 3. So we're just going to sweep the rest of the way is the plan. If that does not come to fruition, we might drop a game or two. We don't plan on it. But in all seriousness, I think that when you ask about the future, I really do think, I mentioned the proud past, try to say that 10 times fast, and bright future. The future is incredibly bright at St. Thomas. And I say this all the time, but I would not have come over to the University of St. Thomas if I did not believe, and Phil mentioned this, I'm a competitor, if I did not believe that we would become a program that is highly sought after and a national championship type of program. And so I hope that's our future. And I believe that's our future, and I know it can be. And so I think that would be how I would answer that question is, what does that look like the rest of the years we face some of the opponents that we will. I don't know specifically. I hope that we win every game the rest of the year. But I do feel very confident that regardless of how that looks, we're doing things the right way. We're establishing a culture that people are proud of. It's one that our players, I know, are leaning into, that they're excited to be a part of, even in the hard moments. And so as you project out the rest of this year and you look into future years, like I said, it feels certainly bright.
Thank you.
Thank you, you guys.
Thank you.